Lexi Cleveland, who's a senior project manager at ARtGlass, Greg Werkheiser, who's the CEO of ARtGlass, and I've got Therese Alvich, who's the general manager of Madame Tussauds and Merlin Entertainment. And everybody give them a quick welcome.
Good morning. Everyone hear me? All right, terrific. ARtGlass develops software and services that enable cultural and historic sites to offer long-form augmented reality tours to their visitors. What that means in the real world is that a family of four shows up at ancient Pompeii. They rent a pair of smart glasses or a tablet or a phone, just as visitors to cultural sites have been doing in terms of renting audio guides for the past 30 years. And then they can take an hour-long, hour-and-a-half, 2-hour-long walk among the real-world ruins, and our software enables our clients to layer over that real-world view lots of augmented reality magic in the form of 3D recreations of historically accurate buildings as they looked, or as we hypothesized that they looked before Pompeii was destroyed, 360-degree immersive videos, holograms of historic characters, and the like. And the result of those tours is an improved visitor experience as measured by the emotional and intellectual impact that the experience has on the folks that are going through it. Our clients are museums, battlefields, archaeological sites, attractions, basically anywhere within the cultural or historic space where folks want to spend some time and have, in our case, a differentiating experience from the typical tour. Our basic product suite, I'm just going to play a little video in the background to entertain you as I'm going through this, includes three things. First is Tour Builder, which is a code-free platform. Think of it as a Canva for building AR tours. It allows you to do all the things that you would want to do in terms of creating a script and a narrative for the tour, assembling the assets, editing your digital assets, and then publishing those assets. The second thing that we've got is a group tour option. So 50 people show up to Pompeii, they get off the bus, and it allows a docent to, with kind of one swipe of the hand, send content out to 50 of those people simultaneously. And the third is that we've got a mobile web AR app that will operate on any browser. We are hardware agnostic, but we have most frequently worked with Epson using its Moverio smart glasses for a number of reasons we're happy to talk about, but largely the form factor, things like battery life, wearability, et cetera, allow us to get to putting these on millions of people as opposed to a small number of people in a closed environment. We are pleased to be with you today. We are pleased to have achieved at least our primary goal as a company, which is to be the first company to be able, at scale, to bring these types of immersive experiences to the broad general public. We have had plenty of mistakes and setbacks along the way. We've had some successes, and what we want to do today is share with you 10 or so strategic lessons that we think we've learned looking back over the past 5 years that we hope will be useful to you in the context of folks that are also trying to bring AR experiences to a mass market. We'll leave room for questions at the end and look forward to a dialogue at that point and afterwards. I want to flip over here. As you heard, my name is Greg Werkheiser. I'm the co-founder and CEO. I'm a cultural heritage lawyer for the past 21 years, not a technologist. So my colleagues and I founded this company to really realize our passion at the intersection of the preservation of culture and history and at the exponentially growing emergence of immersive technologies. To make the technology piece work, one of our co-founders, Luigi Porcoco, who is an Italian, has a substantial background as a product manager for companies like IGT, which 7,000 person company that develops the software that runs all the casino gaming that you'll see if you go to Vegas. So that collaboration between our interest in culture and Luigi's team's capabilities on the tech side is why we get started. I'm happy to be joined today by my greatest colleague, Lexi Cleveland, who will say a little bit about herself, and then Therese, who's here on behalf of one of our clients.
All right, well, hi, my name's Lexi Cleveland. I'm a public historian, technologist, and I'm known for making very short comments.
In contrast to me, whatever time Lexi does not use, I will use in my responses as you'll see it. My other career, I was paid by the word, not for brevity. And Therese.
Yeah, so I'm Therese Alvich. I am a general manager for the Merlin Entertainments Group, specifically right now for Madame Tussauds. And I came in contact, Greg came in contact with me while I was managing the attraction in Washington, D.C. Anyone who knows Madame Tussauds, we're a wax museum. Normally about celebrity, about Hollywood, about fame, but in D.C. we're a little different. We're more about history, more about the presidents, more about civil rights, and teaching our guests about what happened with these people. So it was a great product at the time for us to work with, and yeah, excited to tell you more about it.
Thank you for being here. I appreciate it. I'm going to kick it off with our first observation. And the idea is we'll run through these. Each of us will say a couple of words about lessons learned. We're going to try and extract it from our own immediate experience to be something that might be more broadly useful. And if we run out of time, we'll cut a couple of these slides, but hopefully we'll get through a few as we go along. The first is this concept of owning a vertical. This is counterintuitive. There's a temptation when you're launching a new tech product to try and show how useful it can be across multiple verticals. That temptation leads you to try and be all things to all people. We took an opposite approach. The platform that we have today is able to serve multiple verticals, including beyond culture and heritage. So anytime you want to tell a long-form story, it could be a tour of a warehouse, it could be a college campus tour, it could be a trade show. The software we developed serves those markets, but the irony is we got to the place of being able to serve those broader markets more quickly because we in fact focused on one vertical first, which was the cultural vertical. It allowed us to get to know our customers and their specific challenges, to be focused instead of distracted, and ultimately the credibility we built by kind of owning the cultural vertical for wearable AR now allows us to translate that elsewhere. Gonna go next, and Lexi's gonna tell you about our next takeaway.
So one of the greatest lessons we've learned is to pursue a product-first approach. We've spent thousands of hours in the field, sometimes literally a field, in all sorts of weather, all sorts of different conditions, to really test the theories that we're coming up with, back at the office, out into the real world. And I frequently found that our theories don't actually pan out when you try it. So when you are creating your products, make sure that you are actually testing them for the purpose they're ultimately going to have, and that you're not just making it a theoretical.
I love the anecdote you tell about us trying on a particular piece of hardware and coming to the realization that maybe this hardware had not been tested on real humans at some point. Do you mind sharing that?
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, so I use a lot of hair products. So, a lot of oils, pomades, accelerants, essentially. And there was a certain headset that got incredibly hot and my hair started smoking. So make sure you test it on a diversity of people if you're making hardware.
Right. Test it on people generally. Test it on the general public, which is not necessarily the people who are in your laboratory, right? next piece is over to you.
Yeah, so my biggest concern was I didn't know much about AR. I just knew, when I saw AR, I thought of those big, huge glasses, right, that you couldn't see anything with, you couldn't see around you. So it was really important for me when we started working together that the ARtGlass product didn't disrupt from the figures. So Madame Tussauds, the figures are our product. The figures take a long time to make. They're very intricate. A lot goes into them, and that is our product. That's what people come to see, and we're very proud that we allow people to walk up to them and touch them and interact with them, and we didn't want to take away from that. So it was so important for me to make sure that this product doesn't take away from the figures, but enhances the product, and makes them come a little bit to life, and at the same time gives a little backstory and educates the general public on what they are and who they are.
Right. So this idea of taking tech and a one-size-fits-all approach to your clients frequently results in disappointed clients because you're not aware of the culture that they have, the themes that they have, and the individual needs that they have. Want to make a pitch for putting your awesome headquarters in a market that might be counterintuitive. We are purposefully located in Richmond, Virginia, and our other headquarters is in Milan, Italy. Richmond is not going to be immediately known to you as the Silicon Valley of the East, despite the fact that there is, in fact, a large tradition of tech companies along the Reston Corridor. The military-industrial complex in Washington, D.C. drives a lot of that. But in Richmond, we're 2 hours south. I spent a number of years living out here in the Bay Area, and I deeply appreciate the advantages of being in an ecosystem where wherever you walk, there's someone who's thinking creatively about changing the world. But we have benefited substantially from being outside of that market, and I'll give you just 4 examples. The first is that funding. We were looking for investors. We were a bigger fish in a smaller pond, and as a consequence, we were the first company in Virginia, tech or not, to receive venture funding from almost all of the major Virginia-focused seed capital groups. The second is talent. We have access to amazing talent, and we do not have to compete with 1,000 other companies for that. So that talent, frankly, comes to us at a more affordable cost. Overhead. We're paying a nominal amount of rent relative to what you might in some of these first tech markets. And then finally, the media loves a story about tech success stories outside of the expected places. And as a consequence, we've been able to attract attention that's been very favorable on that front. I think COVID probably opened all of our eyes about the gap between the expectations of where you have to show up and when you have to show up. And I think some of that's going to continue. So it might be intuitive to you, but the lesson here is don't always have to be where everyone else is to be successful. Lex?
All right, so keep it 100% proprietary. All of our software is proprietary, and we kind of came to that decision because when we first started out, we were using a third-party plugin, but then Apple bought that company, retired that plugin, and a lot of other companies who were kind of becoming our competitors ended up getting wiped out by that. Luckily, at that point, we had already been developing our own software that had the same functionality, so we were able to survive that. But as you are building out your company, make sure that for a lot of your essential features, that those are things that you actually own yourself and that you're not relying on a third party for.
There is as Lexi knows, there's sometimes a cost to that choice. There are special pieces of AR functionality and magic that are out in the market, and sometimes we have to play catch up. But in our view, over time, it's been better for us to play catch up and to not have to rely on third parties for the success of our deployments. There you go.
Yeah, so it was exciting for us. At the same time, I was a little nervous because, as you've heard Greg said, they were more about museums and culture and battlefields and Mount Vernon. And Madame Tussauds, while we are considered a museum, we call ourselves an attraction, right? So we're not stuffy museum, and we didn't want to have that brought to us. We just wanted to enhance the experience. And what was great about Greg and Lexi is that they were open to that. We said, yeah, we're a museum, but we want it to be fun. We want to teach, but we want it to be fun. We have most of our kids were kids. We had most of our clients were kids. So they took that time to come down to the museum several times. Lexi came down and watched the crowd and watched what they were doing, and created the product, adjusted the product to our needs, which was really important for us.
It was important for us not to say that we could do more than we could actually do, and to say that we understood immediately what attractions were as different from museums. So that modesty up the front end and asking our client to be co-inventors with us of solutions as opposed to just a customer proved to be successful in building the relationship. Lex?
All right, so market honestly. So we always follow the principle of under-promising and over-delivering, just because especially in the augmented reality world, there's a lot of people who have like really glossy marketing. They show capabilities that they don't have that are purely theoretical, and then when they go to clients with that, clients are like, well, you promised me this and it didn't happen. So when we approach clients, that's a big issue we would run into is they had bad experiences with previous people who had pitched them, and they're like, okay, we've heard this all before. It's like, no, really, we're legit. So you kind of have to let your product speak for itself. So only say the capabilities you have, be honest about the capabilities you don't have, and your clients will thank you for that.
We've got a couple more slides. We don't have time for all of them. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say one word about each and then skip to the final one that I want Lexi to talk about, and we're going to wrap up and take some questions. We are in the heritage tourism business. You may have heard that tourism was shut down over the past 2 years. The lesson we took away is don't panic. Don't try and reinvent yourself from an AR company to a VR company. Focus on what you do. We pivoted internally, focused on our software, and made advancements that, but for the pandemic, we would not have made for 3 or 4 years. We also reassured our team members that they were going to be safe. We kept everybody during the pandemic, and that was important for our long-term sustainability. Data is important. Our client was obsessed with measuring the impacts.
Yeah.
We were obsessed. We let that help define our innovation. Don't spend all the money or raise all the money in the world. Don't be tempted by these stories about how much money you've raised, how many employees you have, whatever. Keep it lean. We ended up reaching 3 million visitors for what is the equivalent of a rounding error for some of the other companies that spent billions on hardware and software and then ultimately failed because they didn't have a customer base. And then Lexi's going to say 30 seconds about this, and we'll go to questions.
All right, so diversity is important for your team, and that's not just racial diversity, but also diversity of thought, diversity of background, diversity of disciplines. Because the more ideas that you're bringing to the company, the more challenges that you're able to face and overcome.
Love your questions.
If anybody has any questions, could you please come into the microphone so we can all hear it?
So you touched on data, right, and the importance of data. So what sort of data did you measure? Yeah, just my question.
Sure.
Yeah, so again, yeah, it was really important for us. So what we did was we did a lot of testing. We did beta testing, we did alpha testing. I don't even know all the terminology. But before we launched it hard launch, we tested it internally with just our staff. We tested it with our partners. Then we opened it up to do a soft launch with our guests. And we did develop questionnaires, and we asked the guests and asked them to fill out the questionnaire at the end. What did you like best about it? What didn't you like about it? What could be done better? And we take those questionnaires and just analyze that data and then make changes based on those.
And a lot of the feedback we got was not just about the experience, but about the hardware.
The hardware, yeah.
We would then take that feedback, give it, in this case, to Epson. And Epson very quickly innovated new versions of hardware. We had a problem with nose pieces, pinching people after an hour. And within 2 weeks, they sent us 8 more options. So that relationship was driven in part. We could show them the data, and they were responsive as a consequence. Yes, sir.
Hi. Given that you've been in this sector for a number of years, what would you say is the trend with cultural institutions, with AR, VR? Are they laggards? Are there places where they're leading?
There's been a generational change within the cultural sector. A lot of folks that took leadership positions in museums in the 80s and 90s are now retiring. The folks that are replacing them have this isn't an age comment, this is just a generational comment in terms of understanding of technology. A lot of those folks have a much deeper appreciation of tech, and there is an awareness within the cultural community of the studies that show that the expectations of visitors to these sites are not to get the same old version of Colonial Williamsburg. They want something differentiating, they want something immersive, they want something that is not gimmicky, they want the story to be the outcome, and the technology may seem odd from the perspective of a tech company. The tech is not the ends, it's just the means to get to better storytelling. And so we've seen a greater appetite, more so than you might think in terms of the reputation of the cultural sector as moving slowly. They're starting to move quickly. Thank you all very much. We appreciate you and look forward to talking with you.